Yeah. Okay. So I like that. I like when you stop that point actually, because it's something I wanted to raise as well. Yeah. Right. In the sense that I think we've all agreed that okay, primarily at this point in time, right,
Yes.
in our history, one of the major reasons for the black race currently failing or currently being underdeveloped, and particularly the nations, right, of the black race like Nigeria and other West African countries and sub-Saharan countries, is because of lack of visionary leadership, lack of
Yeah.
pragmatic leaders as well, basically lack of good leaders. So, but then how exactly do you bring in these good leaders, right? The Western countries came up with a system of democracy,
Yeah.
right? And then, over the course of the colonialism, well,
This
Greece is a Western country, if you ask
well,
for that, right? Right. So, um, all right. So, following through up until now, right? They ended up, colonialism happened actually, and they brought in this system of democracy to us, which we received as Africans, and we've been adopting it pretty much since our independence. But recently, it seems like that trend of democracy is starting to like have cracks in the walls, particularly across sub-Saharan Africa. Like, I mean, like in West Africa, for as an example, you look at across West Africa, Niger, there was a coup.
Francophone countries mostly.
Yes, there was a coup in Niger. There was a
Mali,
coup in Chad. There was a coup in Mali.
Burkina
Um,
Faso.
there was a coup in Burkina Faso. Across Sub-Saharan
now
Africa as well. You've seen coups in Guinea-Bissau. Just so it was just like last week or so. There's also a coup in
Madagascar.
there's been a coup in Madagascar. In Tanzania, they had an election, but it was
Sham.
the election was a sham election. Now you're having people being killed for protesting against that
Yeah.
election result. You understand? Um, I mean, it just looks like democracy all across Africa is starting to fall. Even the ones that are so-called stable democracies, like Togo, for example, the Togo and Cameroon. In Cameroon, you have a 91-year-old Paul Biya.
I
A
think I
91
don't
year old
consider
and
those
he's
countries
ruling.
stable.
I
They are
mean, according to
autocracies.
the West, they say they are stable democracies,
Yeah.
but they're just controlled autocracies, right? So you have a 91-year-old winning an election with over 80% of, even 90% of the votes and all of that. I mean, obviously, those elections look like TV elections, sham elections. So, but then, like, some people are obviously getting weary of democracy in Africa. Like the fact that it's not working. Some are like advocating for military. We are seeing military rule rising across the continent now. It's looking like it may not even be a good alternative to, because even in Mali,
Yeah.
the militants are still taking over power. The military came into power in Mali. They said they wanted to
Primarily
evacuate
because of the
the
militants.
insurgents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're having insurgents holding the capital city on siege, like in Bamako. So all those things are happening. So what system of governance do you think is ideal or is best for Africa? Do you think democracy is the best, or do you think, as some would propose, that we need a benevolent dictator in Africa? A benevolent dictator.
I don't think we need to benefit. I don't think democracy. Now, you've mentioned some of the things. I think both of you did a good job mentioning this that happened, sharing with colonialism.
Yeah.
Now, I saw a post about how Western societies evolved and became what we know.
Yeah.
And it's easy on three core parts. You have Greek analytical thinking and democracy. Greek analytical thinking from philosophers like Plato, Socrates, like trying to picture what a society should be like and about questioning things like how does the environment, what is in the air, what is in the
Basically,
river,
curiosity.
curiosity.
Yeah.
Then you have Roman law,
Yeah.
and then you have like their Christian values and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. And I think that for African countries, especially in this period, to actually develop, we need to start formulating our own sort of ideology. And I look at countries like Saudi Arabia and see how they sort of like reorganize their society to reflect their realities. And seeing how for a long time they were really restricted around their participating in the rural society. They have Saudi women having more freedoms comparable with women in the Western region. And looking at it, these are these places like Afghanistan are came from formed by Islamic governments with the men child there, stop them from going to school, force them to wear burqas and hijabs. And look at what is this future for those types of societies. And looking at even African countries as well, if we don't start to like fantastic, what are things that work? You can blame any system, be it socialism, be it communism. If those form of government here do not reflect like modern realities of the day, how do you care for them? How do you feed your people? How what else are going to look like? What's the educational system going to look like? How are people going to participate? How are you going to mobilize capital? Like those are the basic problems that any government face, whether you're democratic or you're a military government. That's one of the reasons why I remember telling my younger brother that I don't believe the military government is capable of doing anything anywhere because they are not equipped to do, they are not trained to do that. What soldiers are trained to do is to fight wars, to manage their members of their team, to be commanders. That's what they are good for, like command and control. They are not good for like organizing entire systems of production, for example.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think that whatever system of government choose to practice must be something that looks at okay, in the 21st century, how do governments around the world care for their people, provide for their people, create an equitable society that works for each one? Because looking at like an individual, like what will make an individual um, flourish or develop is when he's able to contribute to the society, when he's able to attain certain, we talk about Maslow's law of
Yeah,
hierarchy.
hierarchy of needs, yeah.
Yeah, we are still stuck at the level of
Then survivor.
feeding, survival, those sort of things. So our society is going to get to a top point where we cannot start to worry about, when is the impact playing.
Okay, so but then like yeah, I understand the first point you're raised right now about we having to introspect to find out exactly our core values as a society, and then from
Yes.
there we can shape in the the system of governance. But like I think those are like more like long term approaches in the sense that I don't think you can within the next 2, 3 or 5 years in Nigeria
Yeah, true.
easily craft out just
It is going to be a long process. I agree.
yeah. So but then like pending that time when we get there, like do you feel like the democratic system as it exists in Africa is ideal, or do you feel like are you of the view rather that maybe if you have like a benevolent dictator like I was like others have been insinuating, right? The benevolent dictator may create like an avenue for us to introspect and eventually find out those values for ourselves, right? Like for example, we look at somewhere like China. Like China was like fundamentally communist and all of that, and then she came in. I think there was someone before she as well. Come out. Yeah, he also was. I think he was even the initial person that started like the whole opening up of the economy and all of that, right? So he had those sort of what you may call it benevolent dictators that came in, made some core reforms into the country, right? That created the platform that from there they were able to spring up.
You know,
So do you think
about
Africa
China,
needs that sort of situation or that sort of intervention?
I think it's different.
Yeah,
Because I think about China, like even historically, we've always had a strong civil service base.
yeah.
They've been writing civil service exams since like 17th century, 16th century, that far back. We don't have something of that similitude here. And even at points when China was strictly communist, they went open up, they still had like their committee. They have the standing committee. They come up with policies. They come up with like how do you want the country to look like? What should the country do? You can if you have a benevolent dictator and there's no institution around it, it's still going to fail. And that's why Russia's system did not succeed.
Okay. So, but what then we now prefer as like the solution? Like, yeah, we just have to go through the long route,
It's
the
going
long
to be it's
process.
going to be long. Yeah. And Joshua said it like we need education. Like a lot of people who are in positions of leadership, I don't think there's some of them are very literate, and for the PhDs, doctorate degrees. So some of them are do not classify as being illiterate.
Yeah.
But some other people maybe they just have like secondary school certificate and probably did not even pass Some of them probably failed, so they have those set of people. But I see that there's sometimes isn't that much of a difference between those who just graduated with a pass or maybe they failed, and those who have PhDs. When it comes to like governing the people, they still do the same things. They still say the same things. There's not much difference. I think that one of the things we can do is probably improve our standards of education and sort of introduce a method of educating potential leaders. Because, say for example, in Britain, most of their prime ministers have either gone to Oxford or Cambridge. And they studied either PPA, philosophy, politics, and economics. Like most of their prime ministers. If you look at them from the current one down to um, like 6, 7, 5 of them. In the US, you have most of them is studied law. I don't know what Biden studied, but Biden went to a good school. So you have Harvard graduates, you have people who went to MIT, leading the country.
Okay.
In China, their own system is you attend school, but you start from grassroots. You start leading a small group of people, then you manage a region. So
Mhm.
before you get
That's
to
how
the
the
point,
communist
yeah,
party.
because Xi Jinping started from leading like a
Yeah, a
small
small
local
city.
government, then the city, then he went to a region, then he joined the standing committee, then he won the election. Like everybody thinks that China is like they have elections for those sort of like rules here. So we have to have. I think Africa needs to our countries in Africa needs to start thinking of like how do we develop leaders, what structure do we put in place. So not just anybody, because you have to start thinking about issues of governance, like
Yeah.
to lead people is hard. Like Josh and I have had some experience, like having to lead people in school is very difficult to do. And if you don't have people who have been trained, who understand how complex system works, you mentioned the issue of electricity. Electricity is not something easy to overcome. We generate more than we distribute, not fix that problem in the last 30 years. And that shows you that it's not a simple problem. But because we don't have people who are being trained to know how to fix complex problems, we keep making the same mistakes.
Okay. So, but then when you get senator's perspective, right? So I was making a point like when it comes to Africa and how democracy seems to be failing in Africa, both from the point of military coups and even the fact that people are not seeing the dividends of democracy, what you expect to see, like economic benefits and the likes. So would you support the notion that some people raise, right, that we need a or Africa needs benevolent dictators to put get the ground running, right? Put the structures in place for any sort of future governance to run smoothly. Or are you of the opinion that you still have to maintain the trend of democracy
That I
that the
have the
time is
potential of failing. Okay, so okay, let's think for a moment. Let's say we should give benevolent dictatorship a try. Just for a moment. Thought experiment. Who let's take Nigeria for instance.
Yeah.
Who should be the one? Who should be our candidate among the plethora of potential candidates that we have? Let's think about it for a moment. And do you think with what you're thinking in your head, okay, you think they can execute it? All the people that we have right now, from state level to the federal level. I think there is a human capital problem, bottom up and
Top down.
top down as well. All right. When the military coup, let's say in a place like Burkina Faso, for instance, the opinions are divided. You have a lot of learned people in West Africa that think it's a good thing. And you start to think and you ask yourself, like, okay, what am I missing? Like, is there something I'm missing? There is no way you would think military leaders are equipped to lead a country in 21st century. They're not even equipped to match up with what is happening economically around the world. These guys are not equipped to do that, right? Is it Tare that want to match up with Trump and other guys? Clearly, they are not in that same category. But somehow, some people are celebrating it, and then you start to think and like, okay, if these are the so-called Neletot people that are celebrating military coup, then there's something wrong with our human resource. Why do we have leaders that do not know anything, that probably fail, or that we don't even know whether they finished their secondary school, leading the people? Because there is a large population of people that will vote them. All right. Three of us are probably not going to vote somebody whose result is in contest. All right, that we are not even sure whether or not he has it. But for the three of us, there are millions of people that will gladly vote them in just because they are promising them the same thing. And that's why you're saying that there's so much difference between the so-called PhD holders and the ones that know. Because the people, they don't need a change. You know exactly the formula. So I just need to repeat the same formula. All right. So once I do road, I'm good. I've done the best, not even the best,
Dividends.
exactly. And so we have that, we have a large population that is very, very deficient, intellectually. Again, this has nothing to do with the gene. It's just that we don't just have capital. Like, we are empty upstairs. Let me just put, I mean, that's the best way I can, that's the nicest
Not
way I can
enough.
actually do it. And so you still want to get leaders in that pool of people. So you're already at a disadvantage. Let's even suppose you're able to now get somebody who is able to see the vision. You need people to support you. You need 200 million people, for instance, in the West African country of Nigeria to support whatever thing you're doing. That's the only way you can gain, like, so you can have some success, whatever vision you have. More than half of those people are illiterate. So how do you even rally them around a unified cause? Because sometimes they are most of them are still in this whole point of survivor. They still want to eat, they still want to drink, and so you still have to hang them like handout of money, conditional cash transfer, and that's what people will vote about. So what do I think needs to happen? I don't think we need a form of benevolent dictatorship because we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle.
Yes, what you
I
say.
think the one of the reasons why democracy is failing in like West Africa is because there is no trust in the leadership. And that's why there is always this divide to like, oh, we are celebrating it. Some people are even clamoring for it. It's because they do not trust the current system and they feel like maybe the military leadership would fix, for instance, the corruption. But they don't know
How do you
any
fix the
better.
system?
So yeah, I think we still have to safeguard democracy because that's still our only hope, especially because in democracy, for instance, you are forced to build democratic institutions. You have like the house, you have like the state, you have like the federal government. I mean, these things are not perfect, but they just decentralize it in such a way that at least you can have development in pockets of the country. And maybe with that, we can have some things up. So I think it has to be a combination of long term plans and short term plans. Most of the leaders we've had have they just major in the short term plans. And that is why we are not seeing any major change. I think you still need the short term plans. Like, for instance, some of the conditional cash transfer, like, some of the loans that they hang out for market women and all. I mean, since that's what we still do. However, you don't have to major in that. Just some percent, maybe 40% of your policies should be around that. Then the remaining 60% should be around, okay, we need to build infrastructures, we need to connect regions together. Like a project like the coastal highway. I love the idea because think about it. If you're able to travel from Lagos, say to the capital city of Cross River, Calabar, for instance, in 4 hours, can you imagine the amount of economical growth that can happen along the coastal line? In a matter of say 10 years, for instance. Of course, so we need project like that, but you need to also augment that by other stuff that will pacify the people in the meantime and execute those projects. Not that you just announce them and then you blew money there and nothing's happening. People are still going to lose trust in what you're doing. So we need like we need projects like that. We need infrastructure projects. We need like policies. We don't have to be afraid. If we have to restructure, we should restructure. First of having security challenges in Nigeria, and one of the last tweet the president put out that is encouraging state policing. We need stuff like that. You understand? So at least at the state level, we know that each state is protecting its own citizens. Now we have widespread, what's it called? At least apparent widespread insecurity. If out of 36 states and one federal capital territory, 10 are able to safeguard their own state, at least that we have 27 left to undo. At least there's some progress with that. So I think that those are the things that we can consider. We need to safeguard our democracy, and then we stay now need to build up from there. Educate people, invest in the education, and not just send them to school, but quality education. Personally, I would want Nigeria to either go along regional lines or state lines. Honestly, we should most of the things that are centralized should come down.
To the
Like
regions.
state policing and all of
Yeah.
stuff like kind of thing. At least each state we have to develop their area, their region, and maybe that will kind of signal other states that maybe we need to also sit up all these handout that are going out to state at the end of the month, at the end of the year. We need to start reducing them, and everybody should go back and build their own, their own state or their own region. At least that way you're able to vote for that is shukura because it's from your state governor, what have you. I mean,
Okay.
to some extent,
Right.
that is what I think. I don't think military government is going to save anything. It's just
Yeah,
going to
but
keep repeating.